In the meantime, President Muhammadu Buhari on Tuesday inaugurated the National Steering Committee of the National Poverty Reduction with Growth Strategy to be chaired by Vice President Yemi Osinbajo. This is in line with his commitment towards lifting 100 million Nigerians out of poverty in 10 years with a well-researched framework for implementation and funding. Poverty has been identified as Nigeria's major challenge, fueling insecurity in the country. The question in the minds of many is, can 100 million Nigerians really be lifted out of poverty in 10 years? And how well can these strategies be employed to achieve this target? Let's talk to a development economist, Mr. Odilim Ewebara. Thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Ewebara. Good morning.
Thank you for having me, Cmtte.
So
pleasure.
When you first heard this administration talk about lifting 100 million Nigerians out of poverty in 10 years, what came to your mind?
Cmette, I don't know where to start, but I think at the end of the day, it's a big dream. I can also dream to create a job for all Africans. The problem is, how do you do it? Committees don't solve problems, especially solve problems like creating jobs, problems like reducing unemployment rates, and of course, anything is possible, but you have to be able to show how you achieve your goals. Yes, America did it in 1930, between 1933 and 1940. China did it between 1980 and 2005. India is doing it. Nigeria can do it. The problem is that the system is anti-development, is pro-poverty, and is highly corrupt that I don't know how you want to achieve it. But be it as it may, I'm ready to discuss this matter as long as we can, because there are so many things we have to look at that have been impeded Nigeria's economic development, and it has pushed so many Nigerians into the unemployment market and dragged so many Nigerians into the poverty lane, if I can use that word. Thank you.
All right, but in January 2021, the president directed the Presidential Economic Advisory Council to articulate, what will lift 100 million Nigerians out of poverty in 10 years. And that gave rise to the National Poverty Reduction with Growth Strategy, whose, steering committee was inaugurated this week. First, what do you make of this poverty reduction strategy, and what do you hope to see the steering committee do?
First and foremost, let me make it clear here that I have stopped advising government through the media, because government must pay me if government wants to appreciate my contributions. I've stopped that. I will never, ever, and no matter how much I love this country, I've stopped giving free advice. What I think we have to do as a nation, and I will continue to say that, because out of love I have for this country, is that we must sit down to resolve security problem. We must sit down as a nation. There's no two ways about it. We must sit down to resolve security problem. That is, and the only way you can resolve security problem is to also engage the youth, and also allow the decentralization of economic policy making. Allow regions to emerge. If we don't do these things, we continue to be academic, and I'm tired of being academic. So what I'm saying in essence is that let government be sincere. Come and say, you know what, we cannot solve this problem because we need inputs of all Nigerians. We need to democratize the way we deal with the public policy. Let all Nigerians come up. Let's build a modern economy. But you cannot sit down in Abuja and just put together people who don't even know what they're talking about in the first place. You cannot legislate for the young men and women of this country who are there in their 20s, and you in your 70s and your 60s be legislating on how they will develop. It's unbelievable. Look, let me give you an example now. A young Nigerian at the age of 24 is the girl who invented or who developed TikTok and is going viral in the world. And this lady is doing that because she is in California and she has the enabling environment to operate. Let's create the enabling environment for young Nigerians. Let's bring people who are their age so that they talk what they understand. Let these young men be mobilized and sit down together and tell government what they want. Let government stop telling people what the people want when you don't even understand the people, what the people want themselves. I'm sick and tired of every day you set up committee and the committee does not make up the people you are trying to solve their problem. First, I will continue to say we must decentralize this country. Anything that does not factor in the economic centralization and governance decentralization, we can continue talking. Because the center is too big, it's too corrupt. And you continue to say you want to solve a problem. How can you, in all sincerity, lift 100 million out of job? Let's look at agriculture, for example. I am in support of what this government has done in the area of agriculture. I will give them a pass mark. Because when Adesina was Minister of Agriculture, he politicized fertilizer and things like that and value chain. He spoke a lot of grammar without doing anything. But this government came in and fixed the fertilizer problem. But the problem is that the value chain has not been put to the level it will be so that it will absorb the production process, that is the farming process, so that all the farmers are produced will go into the food processing chain and the market. They must do that. And CBN has tried, no doubt about it, but we have not done enough. So I cannot give free advice, but I can, if they consult me, I tell them what I can contribute in terms of helping to improve the value chain, the agri value chain, and also how we can export certain things. For example, I had Awolowo talk about outsourcing. It's a big market on its own. India is benefiting from outsourcing from the US. Why can't we do that? But these things need men and women who understand the frameworks, who can design the framework. But these people sit in Abuja in beautiful offices, drinking eating their suya, if I may say, and then come and go to online and read certain things and put them together and say, this is what the young men and women need. Let's stop this. We must develop this country, and we must stop talking and act. Thank you.
Now, you talked about engaging the youth. That's a very good point. So where do you think we can begin to engage the youth in this regard?
Fantastic question you asked, Cmtte. And let me say two things now. Although I didn't want to consult, but let me, because of the love I have to this country, because charity begins at home. And also, I believe that I benefited from global system where I was trained. And I wanted to give back. So that's why I'm back to Nigeria. And I will not pretend not to give back. You see, one of the things I wanted this government to do is, and if this government does it, you will see the change will be enormous. Let's create what I call presidential entrepreneurship competition and create it in the 6 geopolitical zones, where young men and women will come up with their business plans and ideas and things like that. And they'll frame them to become bankable. And a group of people will go interact with them and let it become the next football of Nigeria. So that from here, you'll be able to get the best of all these Nigerians and then see those ones government can actually become equity holders. That is one. Two is that a year ago and a year and a half ago, I created what I called the Equity Investment Bank of Nigeria. Because the problem is that the investment side is lacking. And you cannot give people loans because loans are difficult to be repaid. And they come with collateral. And the Equity Investment Bank would have been what government would have used in order to jumpstart small businesses by participating in their businesses by taking equity in those businesses, but also understand the business framework. All these small businesses, put their business on. But you cannot believe it, Cmette. I presented it to the Ministry of Trade and Investment. They wanted to take it from me. I said no. I presented it to the CBN. CBN people did not even understand what I was talking about because they were thinking it's a fractional reserve banking. And I was explained they could not understand. Now, I'm taking it to the United States of America. It's going to be an African equity investment bank that will be in Silicon Valley. And we'll take it from there. I am ready to help young African men and women who have great ideas to develop them into products and the commercialized products. Thank you.
All right. So the MPRG is proposing the establishment of private equity fund, the Nigeria Investment and Growth Fund to lead resource mobilization drive and also manage the resources, in a sustainable manner. What is your take on this?
Let's make sure they are not stealing, because my idea has already been somehow secured. But be it as it may, let me tell you what needs to be done. First and foremost, we have the mindset of small business. Unless you understand each small business angle you are developing, you only throw money at people. So what I'm saying in essence is that let them first and foremost assemble those young Nigerians who understand. For example, you go into mobile telecommunications, it's huge. You go into phytomedicine, it's huge. You go into security, which is private security, it is huge. There's so many things. You go into agriculture, food processing, it's huge. Let government ensure that these are the areas private equity fund providers go into and they understand the intricacies of this business, because it's not enough to provide funding. The problem in Africa and developing countries is to provide funding. But you have to have technical know-how of who you are providing funding for. What is he doing? How do you work with the person from day one to going public? That is a public offering. You must be ready to do that. But government cannot do it, because government is not business-like. Government is partial. Government gives to those who are close to government, maybe members of APC and things like that. They will not give to those who have great ideas. For example, let me give you this, although I'm not trying to blow my trumpet. I have today a patent on all variants of COVID. I have Nat'l listing over 4 months now. And who is supporting? Nobody. I've gone around. So I've taken it to the United States, and they're already raising funds for me. So how do you encourage Nigerians? That's why I gave you the story of a young Nigerian who is the founder of TikTok. Her name is Drea Okeke, a young girl that is about 25. Is making wave all over the world. Can't we find the people like her and help them to become like her without migrating to the United States of America?
Okay, now you did mention the issue about, not just talking the talk, but working the talk. Now we know that inadequate implementation and policy inconsistency, yes, is a major challenge we have in Nigeria. We are not asking you to consult for the government, but for the love of the country which you preach, how can we deal with this situation? Policy inconsistency.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess we have lost Mr. Iwebaram there. Well, so Iwebaram is talking basically about the fact that we just have to engage the youth.
Exactly.
This has to do with the youth. If you're talking about alleviating poverty, the insecurity issue we're talking about here, still has to deal with the youth.
Yeah.
All right. So, and if you're bringing out policies or you are forming committees or whatever it is, you have to engage those people you are also trying to help. They have to tell you where they need the help from, and then you have to listen to them and not just
creating an enabling environment.
Absolutely,
and giving stipends.
However, we know that forming committees in this country has become, the norm. Really. And at the end of the day, we don't seem to get any tangible result in most cases. But let's just hope. Most times government come up with fantastic ideas and all of that, and that was what I was trying to find out from Mr. Weber. How do we ensure that these policies or programs are well implemented, so it can achieve its aim? I think that's just the major problem. Coming up with policies, coming up with programs, coming up with ideas, I don't think we lack in all of those, but it's implementation of those ideas.
And the political will.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, we take a break, and then when we come back, we look at UNCTAD's World Investment Report, talking about the FDI inflows. Do stay with us. If you've just joined us, you're watching Business Morning on Channels Television. Well, just before we went on break there, we were talking about federal government poverty alleviation strategies, and we're talking to a development economist, Mr. Odilim Ewebara. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Ewebara, for sticking on there. Well, just before we went on break there, I wanted you to talk to us about what you think about policy implementation. I mean, we're not talking about you giving the government advice here, but as a citizen of Nigeria who also loves the country, just as you've always, said, we know that inadequate implementation and policy inconsistency, of course, are the major challenges we have, in implementing some of the policies that we have. How can we deal with this?
This is a beautiful question, but it will be difficult for me to answer it the way you might expect, because implementation must be part of the policy framework at the beginning. So it is when you frame your policy, making implementation take its right position or place. Then when you want to implement, you'll be able to successfully implement. But the problem is that the policy makers are not connected to or with those who will implement those policies. And as I said earlier, the problem in Nigeria is that policy implementation is very partial. For example, now, you design a policy to build a railway from one part of Nigeria to another, without factoring in the economic benefits or losses it will bring. So you discover that at the end of the day, in the process of implementing that policy, you may not get the funding you need because the provider of the funding already knows that that project will fail. So the provider of the funding will ask for enough collateral to reduce his or her risk exposure. But when you are implementing a policy that is democratic, that is people-oriented, you will see people will support it. But people become hostile to the policy because the policy is not pro-people and the policy is actually sectional. So that is my take on this. And I think at the end of the day, implementing policy, you must find people who understand the policy in the first place. And you find people who are passionate to see that the policy itself is implemented successfully. When you do that, and you try to allow the people that have to implement this policy the free will or the free hand to do that. But when you control all steps, the people that will implement the policy, and you politicize it, it ends up not being implemented. And that's what is called policy discontinuity. A new government comes and abandons the policy of another government. Maybe Buhari now said he's going to lift 100 million Nigerians out of poverty in the next 10 years. Buhari knows that he's not going to be in government beyond 2023. So how does he want to continue the implementation of his policy, if I thought the policy actually will be implemented, beyond his tenure? These are the things we have to factor in. But let me put this in Cmette. I think if you go to Dubai and you go to Abu Dhabi, you see the gap. Abu Dhabi produces oil, but Dubai is an entrepreneurial and commercial hub of the United Arab Emirates. They are independent economically. But there's something Dubai is doing that Abu Dhabi is now trying to copy. Dubai believes that business must be separated from religion. That business must be separated from government. And business must be separated from color, whether you are black or white. Business must be business. And they learned that from the United States of America. Why can't we make business be business? Whether it's an Igbo man that has the great idea how to make business function, because that Igbo man will create a lot of jobs for Nigerians and will all be beneficiaries of his great ideas. Or a Yoruba man, or an Hausa man, or a Fulani man. Look at Elon Musk. He came from South Africa, but he's today the second richest man in the United States. And he's the man behind Tesla, electric cars. America did not discriminate him. And look at the young girl I mentioned, that is Drea Okeke. She is from Nigeria. But America did not discriminate him because she's a black and a woman. Let's stop discrimination in business. Let's call business business. And let that be a legislation. Now that they are trying to amend the Constitution, let the Constitutional amendment include forcing government to hands off in business. Allow business to be business and allow government to be government. And allow ethnicity and religion to stay away from business. So that those who want to invest in agriculture, we invest in agriculture anywhere in the country without being afraid that should there be a problem in Nigeria, their investment will be confiscated by a region or something like that.
All right, thank you very much for sharing your time with us on the program today, Mr. Ewebara. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me, Cmtte. It's my pleasure.